Week 3 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few quarterbacks I looked at off the wire this week. The first quarterback, Daniel Jones of the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones, he's available right now in 83% of fantasy leagues. And Daniel Jones, the first 2 weeks of the season, we know why he beat Anthony Richardson out in training camp to lead this Colt team to 2-0 week 1 versus Miami. 272 pass yards, a touchdown, 26 rush yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And then week 2, if you thought week 1 was a fluke versus a bad Dolphin team, versus one of the best, if not the best defense in the league, Jones went out there, had a good game, 316 pass yards, a touchdown, 2 rush yards, and a rushing touchdown. So Daniel Jones, he's playing in the confines of the offense. We know he's got some rushing upside. We know he's a conservative quarterback as well. He doesn't take a lot of deep shots, but his yards have been there the first couple weeks, and the good plays have been there for Daniel Jones. And we saw a few years ago with the New York Giants. He led them to the playoffs one season, winning 11 games in a year. So week 3, a decent matchup at Tennessee. I know the Titans, their defense is a bend but don't break type of unit. This is a division game. But right now, if you need a quarterback, especially with a lot of injuries, Joe Burrow out for 3 months, Jaden Daniels banged up, J.J. McCarthy hurt, Justin Fields in concussion protocol. So with all those quarterbacks banged up this week, I think it's a pretty big week at the quarterback position on the waiver wire. Next quarterback, Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Lawrence, he just makes the list. 50% or less these players are on this list. So Lawrence, he's available in 54% of fantasy leagues. That's Trevor Lawrence. Last couple of years been down for him after getting a contract. In week 1 versus Carolina, wasn't a great game. 178 pass yards, touchdown, interception, 12 rush yards. In week 2 with Cincinnati, a good game it was for Lawrence in terms of fantasy numbers. 271 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 4 rush yards. So week 3, middle of the pack matchup versus the Houston Texans. We saw they did a pretty good job on Monday night was this Texan defense versus Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Bucs offense. But like I said, with all these injuries at quarterback and Trevor Lawrence, he's got good options in that offense. Travis Etienne in the backfield off to a good start. Brian Thomas Jr. off to a slow start. Travis Hunter still figuring things out with him. But like I said, the players are there for Trevor Lawrence. And it was a good sign versus a weak defense in week 2. He had a good ball game, so he's definitely there this week. Next, they had Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford, we know he's at the latter part of his career, and he's been a banged-up quarterback on and off over the last couple seasons. Right now, Stafford out there in tons of leagues at 73% is Matthew Stafford. Not a great matchup coming up at the Philadelphia Eagles, but the first 2 weeks of the year, he's gone out there and he's made plays. And when you got wideouts like Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, it makes everything a little bit easier. Week 1 versus Houston, 245 passing, touchdown. And then week 2 with Tennessee, solid ball game. 298 passing, 2 touchdowns, and interception for Stafford. So like I said, tough matchup, no doubt about it, coming up week 3 here at the Super Bowl champ, Philadelphia Eagles. But like I said, with Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, more times than not, you can have some good fantasy games as the season goes on. So right now, this week, maybe not a good use, but as the year goes on, like I said, definitely a quarterback for owners to go out there and get. Next quarterback, Russell Wilson of the New York Giants. I know Russ, week 1, he looked like one of the worst starting quarterbacks in all pro football. And then week 2, he goes out there and throws a party versus the Dallas Cowboys, even though it was a tough loss in overtime, 40-37. So week 1, like I said, he couldn't get anything going, couldn't move the ball down the field at Washington, 168 pass yards, but did have 44 rush yards on the ground. And then week 2 with Dallas, everyone got involved and they had a big game, 450 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, interception, 23 rush yards. So week 3, a very tough matchup versus Kansas City. I know the defense hasn't been great so far in the early going is Kansas City, but versus good teams, obviously, the Chargers and the Philadelphia Eagles in the early going. So this week, Russell Wilson might not be an option for fantasy owners, but like I said, even though it is the Dallas Cowboy defense, he went out there and he hit his playmakers in Malik Nabers and Wan'Dale Robinson, and he's available in tons of fantasy leagues right now, 95%. And the final quarterback, I looked at off the wires, Jake Browning of the Cincinnati Bengals. So once again, another injury for Joe Burrow. He's going to be out 3 months surgery for the turf toe. And Jake Browning, next man up, and a few years ago he filled in and played pretty well. 4-3 record Jake Browning had for the Cincinnati Bengal team. So coming in relief, mixed bag of results. It was in week 2 versus Jacksonville. But last drive of the game, they drove down and won with a Jake Browning quarterback sneak. So week 2, 241 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and like I said, the 1-yard rushing touchdown at the goal line. So week 3, not a great matchup in Minnesota. They got a quick defense. They get to the quarterback, is this Minnesota Viking team, and they create turnovers. But when you get guys like Jamar Chase, obviously T. Higgins, and Chase Brown in the backfield, that's a lot of offensive firepower. And if you're in 2 quarterback leagues and deeper leagues, I recommend Browning for that. Like I said, we've seen him put up points and play well a couple years ago when Burrow was out. So that's a few quarterbacks I looked at off the wire for week 3 of the fantasy football season.